Good morning, and thank you for joining the meeting. This is number 22 of Delivery Club, and it's the 7th virtual meeting. I'm going to share the screen so that you can follow just some of the materials. I'm going to go through very quickly before Dave and Sarah then present. We all know what the principle around the club is. It's all about sharing and learning and community and so on, which hopefully we will definitely be doing a lot of today. The Delivery Manifesto, we've got the book that's coming out of all of these discussions in part. We're doing well with that, and we have a number of sessions already recorded, and we've actually got one from Louisa as well, which wasn't recorded but covers that as well around Agile. We've been capturing these in videos on LinkedIn and YouTube, so people are becoming internet stars overnight. That's one of the latest ones, which Subhash, there you are in all your glory. Francis Nichols, who's a new member, is going to be recording one shortly with Jonathan. And when would you like to contribute? So please, if you're interested in being interviewed around any one of those topics, they're pretty short. We're only looking for around 10 minutes worth of your insight and expertise. That would be fantastic. I wanted to jump into something. This is just to whet your appetite. You'll find out more about it. But myself and Jonathan have been speaking to a company called Opiner. I think I've got that right, Jonathan.
Yeah.
And what they do is they allow corporates mainly to ask questions of communities of different people. Now, it's typically around 12 people who will respond, and there are different communities of people who respond to a particular question. It's a new organization. We loved it. I got introduced to it through Acumen 7 and just thought, oh my goodness, what a fantastic way of getting opinion and views from different people. So we're going to do something on this, but I'm just going to very briefly give you some details of it. Somebody creates a question, you select a community that you'd like that answer from, review the responses, and then you can share it, and you get something called a wonder wall, which you see in front of you there with all the various video excerpts. And they're actually introducing shortly a way of editing down just the highlights. So there'll be a highlight video of the 12 videos. So it's a question that you can ask of that group of people. Now, where you could say we come in is, I've just added this in here, is they've got the groups they have at the moment is called the Street, the Brain Trust, and the Visionaries. And apologies, I'm going to go through this very quickly. It was just a very quick overview of whet your appetite. And we've been talking to them about, well, imagine you had a room of delivery experts that you could go and ask questions of and get responses of within 1 or 2 days, all video, all 2 or 3 minutes long. The video, 3 minutes at the outside, ideally around 90 seconds is all that people are looking for. So the idea is we're going to ask people we know, business leaders, delivery leaders, to ask an expert community, and the delivery leaders group would likely sit somewhere around here. The focus is not either past or future, could be both, but it's very much at a professional level. I'm sure if somebody wants to talk about a cat or dog, as we were earlier, that might be one of the questions. And then how it actually works, we think it'll take to about 2021, it is 2021, about May 21, and then it'll last for about 8 weeks. So there's going to be about 8 questions. So we'll ask 8 individuals to ask a question around. To get 12 responses quickly, we think about 30 odd people of delivery experts. So we're going to ask people to be part of the community. This is all being done purely at cost just to test out, but longer term, what happens is that people will gain. If you answer a question, there is a small payment that you receive, which is for the hourly rate thing. It's actually very high for you sharing your wisdom, but they've got a very strong focus on charity. So there's a donation made for every response that is made to a charity. So just wanted to stress that, how it works, and so we're not absolutely sure yet. And then, so basically, the question comes in, you get 12 responses. We do a little bit of sharing. People share it within their communities, and it's a test. And the idea is we're testing a private community view, so a group of people. So we're delivery expert. This would be delivery experts. It could be anything on conifers expert as he looks out the window, or dog owners or whatever, but it would be around delivery leaders. So that was just a little whet your appetite. You'll hear more about it in the future. We've had the January event, which was fantastic. We're about to hear shortly from Dave and Sarah, which we're thoroughly looking forward to. March is already set with Thomas Morris talking about the P3 improvement programme that's happening, led primarily within NDA Sellafield. So Thomas will be talking us through that, and hopefully maybe joining a little bit later the call. And we then, as of this morning, Lindsay is looking into it, but Lindsay and Eileen will present about the new professional body for PMO professionals, and also about the PMO competency framework. So there is a little bit, maybe at the end of today, we'll talk about what other future things. There is something around net zero we may come to because of what's happening around the Project Data Analytics Task Force. Maybe ask for some feedback on that. Rosie Hatton, who's another member who I'm working with at Parliament, Rosie has done a public talk about the big R&R programme that's happening. I'm sure she'd be delighted to do the same again, and possibly something around this, how to future, because it's something I'm getting involved in more and more, is how do you look out the 10, 15 years. So I would suggest we come back to this. And so, as you'll know, the presentations that are being made, we're capturing these and we've got them up on LinkedIn, and they're also being captured on YouTube. So today we're going to be listening to Dave and Sarah talking about the future skills, and Dave is going to lead off, and I will pass over control to Dave and Sarah shortly. And Sarah's going to be doing something. That's a fantastic first slide, Sarah, I have to say, not trying to steal it, but just to get us where the conversation goes. So thank you for that. And I will stop the presentation now and hand over to Dave, if that's okay.
My name's Dave Caulk. I've been in projects and programs for far too long, really. 20, 25 years, I suppose. Chartered RPP, got a master's in project management, and I'm a fellow of the APM. And I've been involved with the Delivery Club for probably 3 years or so, I suppose, something of that sort of a nature. Thoroughly enjoy working with the Delivery Club and get a lot out of it. I work for a company called Kinetic. Some of you may be aware of Kinetic. It's a global organisation. We employ about 7,000 people. And we're primarily in the defence industry, and we are known as a highly technical organisation. So a lot of the things that we do are obviously very highly classified, and we support a lot of defence forces right around the globe. Delivered some fairly impressive things, LCDs, and one or two other things to name but a few. What I wanted to do today is really just sort of open the door a little bit on how we are approaching the future capability of our project and program delivery professionals. So we have quite a comprehensive training program for all our delivery staff, and we've got around about 500 across the globe. But there was a question that was raised maybe September, October last year in terms of, well, what do we do beyond the horizon? What do we need to think about to prepare our staff to be absolutely cutting edge as we go forward, particularly based around the experiences with COVID, and how do we tap into some of the real cutting edge thought that's going on within the sort of project community at large. So a special interest group, SIG, was created for capability, and I was asked to lead that special interest group. So if you just go on to the next slide, Donnie, and I will canter through these slides quite quickly. I know I've only got about 20 minutes and there's quite a lot to go through. And we've got about 10 people in the team, and we've got 3 or 4 quite senior project delivery professionals. We've got, again, 3 or 4 sort of mid-level project managers, but we've also got 4 or 5 apprentices and PM graduates. And again, a big part of the capability SIG, as far as I'm concerned, is actually to increase the learning of early careers and also enable them to network with the wider organisation, to give them access to areas of research, this being one, and a number of others, so that they can take the benefit of some of the networks and some of the experience that the rest of the organisation has to offer. I won't read the terms of reference, but the goal effectively is to allow our project and programme people to benefit from the sort of leading edge innovation. And really the goal is to increase effectiveness and efficiency of project delivery going forwards. I'll talk a little bit about the way that this is structured, and I did send Donnie another single slide, which I won't put into a pack to disseminate, because there's probably a question around whether I should be able to do that. I don't mind sharing it visually, but I probably wouldn't want it to go to be released, whereas this slide pack we're looking at the moment, well, in fact, the one that I sent earlier today is absolutely fine to be sent out. And there's some really useful links in there, which I'll explain as we go through. If we just move on to the next slide, please. So we needed a point of origin, and we did a little bit of research, myself and a couple of people in our performance excellence team who look at project and program delivery. We came across this from an organisation called P-Cubed. I'm sure a few of you around the virtual meeting room will be familiar with these guys. And they've put together the 10 key skills for tomorrow's project manager. And actually you go through those and you look at those 10 skills, you think, actually, you know what, that's not a bad starting point. So when we first looked at that, the sort of instruction was, okay, so these are 10 that are being offered, but are they the right 10 for Kinetic? Are there other areas that actually would give us more value? So although that's quite a good starting point, we also considered a wider picture and just made sure that actually all the things that we wanted to look at fell with either within each of these elements, or that we looked at them separately. So again, we looked at who was interested in each area or another area that's sort of aligned to that. Because one of the key things that I was interested in is making sure that everybody who wanted to look at something had a particular interest around it. And one of the things I should say is that everybody that's involved in this are volunteers. We've all got very, very demanding, busy day jobs. However, everybody that was there because they'd volunteered to do it. What we did is we categorised each of the skills, the 10 skills there, and when we reported back to what we described as our capability working group, we've got 2 capability working groups, one for project controls and one for project management. So after looking at this for about 2 to 3 months, we reported back and we traffic lighted where we were against them. So 2 of the skills there, the innovative mindset and the voracious assimilation, we said we haven't progressed it, and we weren't in a position to talk about that further. The ones that were in green there are the ones that actually wanted to take forward and present to the group, the capability working group, for basically sanctioning as to whether we move those forwards. And the ones in amber are the ones that we've basically put to the second tier. So when we go back to talk to the group in 2 months' time, we'll present those ones as well. So again, just conscious of time, so I'm going to go through these fairly rapidly. Some of them are areas that we've touched on, particularly in the delivery club. So artificial intelligence, obviously you had that superb presentation 2 or 3 meetings ago, so I won't go into too much detail on those. But perhaps if you go on to the next slide. So with each of the topics, I asked the lead just to complete this 6-box slide. And the reason I wanted to do that is just to make sure that we had some reference point. So, what is it? What are the recommendations? Is it going to be difficult? What are the benefits? and what are the next stages, and if possible, link it to the sources of research. So again, when you look at the pack, if you indeed want to look at the pack, you'll find some of these sources of research in each of these contain some really, really useful cutting edge information. So the first one we looked at was agents of fast change. So what is that all about? I mean, obviously, the whole point of projects and programs is delivering change. But is there a way that we can attract fast change? And really what we looked at there is some research that just talks about the benefits of making fast change. And effectively, what that suggests is there are people that just do that anyway. And what we need to do is cultivate that in the organisation and then breed that approach across the business. And really that gives you lots of benefits. So it gives you improved processes, policies and regulations, and allows them to be adopted far more efficiently and builds better communication between functions, business areas. And with an organisation like Kinetic that is growing globally very rapidly, it's very easy to without knowing it, have those walls and silos created. So again, those agents of fast change, by really empowering them as much as we can, will help to reduce that sort of silo mentality. So we've talked about things like identification of fast change agents, developing a short course on how to identify them, and how to really be as effective as possible. So we're just waiting on a response back from the Capability Working Group on that one, but the indications are that it's absolutely something that we are going to want to do. I do realise I'm going through this relatively quickly, but if there are any questions, then please stop me. If we move on to the next one, please, Donnie. So benefits realisation, and I'm sure a lot of people think, well, benefits realisation, I mean, that's pretty bog standard, that's not future stuff. Well, we do benefits realisation, however, we don't do it potentially as well as we could do. And so one of the things that we looked at is where are benefits realisation done really well, and what's missing from our organisation to stop us doing that effectively. And again, as Donnie said many times, this is a kind of warts and all thing. So things I'm saying here are potentially weaknesses to our organisation. So I'll just ask that that doesn't get taken any further. But one of the areas that we wanted to focus on is the benefits realisation. So we looked at the mod, which is our major customer, and understood a little bit more about how they worked with benefits realisation. One of the things that they have is actually a benefits manager as a specific job role, and we don't actually have anything like that within our organisation. So one of the things that we're looking at is developing a job description and actually looking at getting benefits management in as a specific discipline to within our business units to help us to really categorise and monitor, track and deliver our benefits in a much more sort of granular level. I'll move on from that one if I can, Donnie. So data science and visualization, again, there's a huge amount of information around this. And one of the statements, or one of the comments that always sticks in my head when I think about data science and visualization is Martin Paver's comment that all projects and programs just have an exhaust plume of data, and it's what you do with that exhaust plume of data which is really important. So again, it is such a huge area that what I wanted the person who led this to really focus on is one small element of it. And actually gave this to one of the apprentices, and the area that we kind of work towards is actually going out and doing some actual research with program managers in terms of how they've used data to deliver their programs, what's worked well, what hasn't. So we're going to build up a significant amount of data about how the data has helped us to deliver, and what can be done better going forwards, because we've got quite a lot of people that are working on data science and AI, etc., and robotic process automation. But how do we actually, what do the users really want? And it was felt that actually we kind of missed the point a little bit, because we haven't really asked the people that are going to be on the sharp end of delivering the projects and programs of the future, what do they actually want? So we did also a little bit of work around visualization. So the next slide, just really, if you just want to go on to the next slide, please, Donnie. So it's just about taking that huge amount of data that is available and making it really visible in a short space of time, so people don't have to spend hours going through data and pulling out the information that they want. The visualization takes them to the areas of data that they want to see quite quickly. So we're doing a load of work on that, and using some of the graphics that you can see here, working with the sort of senior delivery teams to really understand what is it, what's the art of the possible that could help them to assimilate the data more quickly than we do currently. Again, it's such a huge topic, but what I'd like to do is perhaps come back in sort of 6 months and just explain where we've got to on some of these, because some of that data might be particularly useful for others. If you go on to the next one, please, Donnie. So again, data science visualization. This is another apprentice that's working on this. And really, probably the key thing is, how do we structure projects differently? So actually the data that they produce is going to be more usable. And that's really the area that I wanted this particular individual to focus on. Again, talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence, there's so much data on it that it's really finding that niche area which is going to add some value to the business. We've got a small team of people working on this and have been for quite some time in the organisation. But again, it's that small element of focus that can support that team and help their thinking going on. Again, part of that is really identifying some of the sort of more mundane tasks that traditionally we've always had people to run, the spreadsheets and the various systems to give you the data that you need. Actually, how do we get some kind of machine learning to do that legwork for people, to allow people to use their intelligence and think more about actually what is that data telling us and how do we respond accordingly, rather than actually just creating the data in the first place. So again, a lot of good work going on there, but for the team, it's about picking up that small element of what is a very wide piece to focus in on. If I move to the next slide, please, Donnie. Persuasive communication. When I presented these back to the capability working group, one of the things that came back was actually there's only one or two sort of hard skills, if you like, or hard capabilities. The rest of them are quite sort of soft skills, which I absolutely agree with. And I think it doesn't surprise me that that is the case. But persuasive communication is all about just making sure that our project managers of tomorrow are equipped with the knowledge of how to have those kind of more difficult communications, and how to get confirmation from the teams or the individuals that they've understood and they are going to do what you need them to do when you need it done by. And that can be quite difficult, particularly if you've got let's say a more early careers PM dealing with quite a robust project and engineering teams, for example. Sometimes it can be quite challenging to get them to actually do what they need to do. So we've identified persuasive communication as an area that we really need to get some training out into the business. And again, one of the areas that we're looking into is the APM. I think there's some quite useful information around that in the APM. So looking forward to pushing that through and hopefully making a difference with that. If we move on to the next one, please, Donnie. So collaborative leadership, I'll talk a little bit more about this one, a little bit more in depth. The reason for that is that it's the one that I'm leading on, and it's one that I'm really interested in. And effectively, it's really using the power of influence rather than positional authority to engage and align people, focusing the teams, sustaining the momentum and performing. It's, for me, a really interesting point. You know, it's moving from the me to we. And one of the things that I wanted to look at is, okay, where has this been done? Can I find somewhere where collaborative leadership has actually made a difference into an organisation like mine? And through research, I came up with an organisation called Agile, Agile Nobel. It's a much bigger organisation. They've got about 25,000 people globally, and they were struggling to achieve some of their growth ambitions. And if you just go on to, I think it's the next slide, please, Donnie, I'll let people read that whilst I'm talking. They brought in a new CEO called Tex Gunning, American, surprisingly, and he realised that it's not really about the systems and about people leading from the front. It's about a collective leadership and moving from an independent achiever structure and culture to an interdependent collaborative structure and culture. And for me, that was a really, really powerful message. And the output of a program they put in place to bring about collaborative leadership delivered something like a 9% growth in turnover, 13% growth in profit, and the employee engagement scores just went up right across the patch. So for me, that's a really, really important area. If you just go on to the next slide, please, Donnie. I've just picked out a couple of things. It is, again, it's a big area, and there's a lot of discussion points on it. But if you think about where we are at the moment, particularly an organisation like ours, it is quite a top-down control, command and control organisation. And that's kind of not surprising. Most of our senior leaders are ex-military, and there's not really anything wrong with that, but it can lead to what can be described as an ecosystem. And really, collaborative leadership is about changing that ecosystem to it's about us. So it's about changing the environment to one of influence, conversation, partnership, mutual empowerment, mutual support, and mutual accountability. And that'll be quite a struggle for a number of the leaders that we have within the organisation. One of the things that I've also described is that collaboration is one of Kinetic's core behaviours, and yet actually, how much training do we do? How much do we empower our leaders to work collaboratively? Well, I'm going to say not a great amount. So even things like, what are the core competencies? Do people know what they are automatically? Things like self-leadership, relational intelligence, team orchestration, networking. Are those, do they automatically come to people's minds when they're thinking about collaborative leadership? Possibly not. So for me, in summary, with collaborative leadership, I think it's inevitable that collaborative leadership and command and control leadership styles be needed to grow a sustainable business. But we need to give those leaders the understanding, the intelligence to really be able to use that set of skills going forwards. So one of the things that's already been agreed is that I'll use one of the mechanisms that we've brought in over the last 6 months, 9 months, again alongside the sort of COVID issue, which is the lunch and learns, but doing all through a WebEx style. So we do a 40-minute briefing session, and we normally get 400 to 500 people across the globe on those, and I'll be doing a session around collaborative leadership on one of those in the not too distant future. If you just want to go on to the next one, please, Donnie. So again, at the end of the meeting to the capability working group, I just put a summary of recommendations up against each of the areas. All of those were agreed in principle. I've got a meeting with them again next week, and I'm a little bit poacher and gamekeeper as well, because I also sit on the capability working groups. But I kind of veto my my rights on it when we're talking about this particular sort of approach. But that's really where we got to, and again, you know, it's a very fast canter through the sort of recommendations and the topics that we looked at, and it's very current as well. The presentation I gave to the Capability Working Group with some of the team members was only, was it last week or week before, so it's very recent. But it seems to be gaining a lot of ground, actually. I'm getting 1 or 2 people a week asking me if they can come and join the special interest group on capability, which is great. I'm looking to get some people joining from a more global perspective. At the moment, it's very UK centric, but yeah, it's definitely heading in the right directions, I think.
So very quickly, a little bit about me. I've been a practitioner for over 30 years, typically with multinationals in the projects, programs, transformation space, and governments in the UK and abroad. I'm a chartered project professional with the APM. It's my professional body of choice. I'm a fellow of the APM and also a former non-exec director with them too. For the last 4 years, I've been an associate working with the IPA in government. So for them, I'm a subject matter expert for projects, programs, transformation, and I'm also a government major projects portfolio reviewer, which is very interesting to see. Right at the moment, I've kind of changed track significantly. So I like to think that I'm actually on my the third portion of my career at the moment. And I am a first-year PhD research student with the University of Manchester. And I'm looking at improving project delivery within major government projects. It also makes me a Project X researcher, if you're familiar with Project X. And my focus of attention at the moment is actually benefits, which is a very interesting area, and I'm going through all of the literature review at the moment, which is a bit of a slog, I have to admit. So I'm a visiting fellow at Cranfield University as well, and I'm a guest lecturer on the government's project leadership program, if you're familiar with that. I've known Donnie and Jonathan for a few years. In fact, it was Jonathan who invited me some years ago to to write the 3rd edition of Project Leadership for Gower. And that's how I got in touch with Donnie, and we co-authored Project Leadership. And I went on then to do a piece of research for the APM around project leadership skills and competencies and behaviours with Professor Mike Bourne at Cranfield. So as a glutton for punishment and never knowingly refusing a challenge, I'm also currently doing a 12-month research project with the APM into the value of project management assurance practices. So that's me in a nutshell. And this is a slide that I use when I talk to people about project leadership and go and talk with clients around it. And I think it kind of, for me, it really encompasses the whole aspects of leadership, and you can see the range there that they're looking at. Trump has gone, what a character, but many of the other international leaders remain. Donnie, would you like next slide, please? So I took a rather different perspective around future skills for project community, and I asked the question, okay, for future skilling according to whom? So if you actually go on to the internet and type in future project management skills, you have a huge range there of people offering what they think is most relevant for the future skill set for project managers. And I do believe that COVID and this period of crisis has really disrupted perhaps what we thought were the most relevant and core competencies for project community and project leadership. Donnie, next slide, please. So what are the current hot topics? Well, the first one is around projecting the future. What is it? Where are we going to be going? What's the adaptive project professional actually going to look like? And that's a big conversation at the moment with the APM. Next one, next click. And some years ago, a little while ago now, UCL and the APM and Arup put out something called the Future of Project Management and what that might entail. And it did actually look at data. It also looked at AI, both areas that I know that we've already covered within the Delivery Club, but very much taking centre stage at the moment. Next click, Donnie. And I was on a call with the IPM Global Exec Council. They were doing an event. I don't know if any of you caught it. And one of the interviews was actually with the Vice Chair of Canada's Treasury Board, Minister Duclos, and he talked about criticality of national and international collaboration, COVID pulling delivery to primary position in terms of skill sets is the way that he actually quoted it. So this idea of decisioning, designing, planning, delivering at volume and also at speed has really taken centre stage at the moment. Next click, Donnie. And Forbes magazine talking about the future of work, so looking at the hybrid workforce. And I think a lot of the skill sets you need for that really do resonate with the project community, with matrix working, but also with remote working too. And the last click, please, Donnie, on that one. I was on the recent NHS Futures event, which was a really week-long event last week, and Fiona Spencer, who actually represents the function, professions and standards at the IPA, was talking about for government and specifically what's next in terms of capability building and where is the future project delivery profession going to go within government. So all of this is kind of helping to build the conversation around what are the future skills actually going to look like. Next one, please, Donnie. So if you quickly click through two more for me. These are all really about capability building and competency frameworks. You're all familiar with competency frameworks and what it is. But I thought that looking at a range of these, for SAP, tell it like it is, stay curious, keep promises. So these are not technical, they're more behavioural. Certainly, as Dave pointed out earlier, for Kinetic as well, relationships, judgment, selflessness, vision, humility, etc. So these are ones that are typically trotted out when we talk about leadership skills and what needs to happen. Next one, please. Competency frameworks. This is a snapshot of the government's, the IPA project delivery profession, what that looks like. And down the left-hand side of this table, you can see things like visible leadership, credible action, working with ambiguity, collaboration, influencing, conflict resolution, etc., etc. So these are all very well known. And what you typically find when you're looking at a whole range of competency frameworks is that there are core areas where everything kind of coalesces in that. Next one, please, Donnie. So first of all, just quick run through two new realities. This was the old new reality. We're into the new reality with COVID and what's going on. But traditionally, you're talking about hierarchical position within an organization for leadership. You're talking about legitimate authority, delegated power. So everything is actually legitimized through the organization and where everybody is at the time. And the right to command. And you have a look at Donald Trump, as I use an example, and you can see exactly how that pans out. The old new reality is about the networking. So flatter structures, reducing the levels of hierarchy, a lot of downsizing as there has been, and I know that there will be again very shortly. New rules of engagement, and we're talking about those really crucial relationships. And with the crucial relationships, you're talking about the really crucial conversations too, which is something that Dave also alluded to as well. Last bullet point on there is more reliance on influencing. And networking, collaboration, persuading, negotiation. So all of those very much interrelational skills, interpersonal skills are the behaviours, again, coming to the front and the foremost around this. Next one, Donnie. So the book that Donnie and I wrote, here's a plug, looked at the 8 lookings, what we talked about the 8 lookings in project leadership. And very quickly, it was looking forwards, looking backwards, and then looking at the the stakeholders, the vision, keeping your eye on the ball and understanding where things were heading, and then focusing but also focusing on the results. What are the end outcomes, the deliverables, but the outcomes, the benefits, etc., that you expect to see once it goes into operations? So this was a way of trying to get different views and perspectives on what was going on, both for the future, but also what had been happening as well for the past. Again, Donnie, if you would. So when Mike Bourne and I took the challenge on to do a piece of research with the APM, again into project leadership, we interviewed about 40 people over 5 organisations. All were very senior, and you can read it. It's available actually on the APM website. But we condensed and synthesised all our findings into what we call the 8 survival skills. And you can see them there. I won't bother reading them to you in terms of timing, but I know you're absolutely well able to do that yourself. But again, they're fairly wide ranging. It doesn't bring out the one that I think David was quite particularly interested in, which was around communication, but I do feel that it actually filters around all of those. But when we talk to the project leaders, and when we talk to project leaders, we were talking to individuals who are leading in most cases, multi-billion pound mega projects. Not only those, but also aspiring project leaders and also some heads of capability within those organisations, plus some of those project sponsors. So getting all of that information together, this is how we actually condensed it down. Donnie, next slide if you would. So if you want to, yep, and that's the last one. So we also talked about, when we went to present on these, and you can see the variety of conferences that we actually went through, talked about these. The question was always to the audiences, and bearing in mind the number there, probably from 50 up to 120, we were asking the questions, okay, of those 8 competencies, those 8 survival skills, which ones do you rank as the top 3? And interestingly, if you actually look at those, the top 4 are fairly consistent. What is it that you think is most important around those? So judgment decision making in each one of those came out top. Then you've variously got creating project culture and environment, building credibility and confidence, and anticipating as well. And the interest for me was that they were so consistent. They were done over about a 12-month period with 1, 2, 3, 4 different sets of audience, but they still came out typically very consistent. Next one, Donnie, if you would. Lastly, the piece about implications on this too, because this is a model actually that Donnie and I used in the project leadership book. And it's one that looks at 3 perspectives when you're actually trying to make a transition. And the reason I put this in there is because we typically talk about the capability we need and how we're going to get it, whether that's through formal training, informal training, secondments, self-study, whatever those channels actually might be. But we very rarely understand that in order to do this, we've got to be able to jettison some of the things that we were doing before that we were very, very comfortable with. So that you'll see on the left-hand side, what we pay attention to and what we bother doing really is part of our own value system. What it says there, you value, what you value is what you focus on. So if you're moving into a new position or you're learning a new skill, what is it that you actually want to take with you? It's also about time, what you bother to spend your time doing, but also the time horizon you're actually looking over. So are you making time for this? Are you expected to do it within your own time, or actually is the organisation helping you to do this? And then finally, skill sets. We're comfortable because we've attained the position that we've currently got. We're comfortable about doing what we're doing. But how do we actually move forward, and what are we prepared to jettison? What are we prepared to delegate? What are we actually prepared to leave behind?